Hi everyone, welcome back to the Mariana Trench where we dive deep into issues facing the nation. I have been taking a really long break from this channel, which was my little side pet project, which I have a lot of pet projects that I never finish. So I'm like writing a book, I like do my channel, I'm like cooking a lot more and doing like little reels and stuff. But this one got really exhausting because I used to talk about like political issues facing the nation, and that just got really exhausting with like the whole Trump stuff and whatever. So don't want to go back to that. But we do have an issue that's very dear to my heart that is facing the nation right now, and I thought we would talk about it here. One of the reasons why I chose this platform is because, and just like I did, like with politics or with things that are like have heavy weight, um, I find that social media platforms are really the worst platforms for that. Like people try to with like their one-liners to like get back at you or like be sarcastic or make a meme to get back or whatever. And it's just really, really bad platform for like thoughtful conversation or thoughtful discussion. Not that this is like better because I don't have like people that I'm actually talking to, but at least I could like formulate my thoughts a little bit better. And I'm also not like in your face. Like I feel like people on Facebook and Instagram and stuff, they're just like so in your face about their beliefs and their, opinions and agendas that it's like, if you want to come find me and talk about, listen to me talk about my unsolicited 2 cents on anything, then you can come find me. And I really appreciate my 8 subscribers that have followed me up to this point. So let's get into it. Um, now, I want to talk about Simone Biles and I want to talk about USA Gymnastics a little bit. And really, I want to talk about why I was disappointed with her choice to leave the scene, to basically leave the Olympics. Now, uh, we have yet to see whether she's going to compete in the individual apparatus events, but she backed out of the team uh, final, and she has announced that she is backing out of the team all around final, which she currently holds a gold medal in. So she will not be defending that, and still yet to be seen whether she's going to participate in the individual rounds. So with that said, there's a lot of opinions flying around. There's a lot of constructs and narratives as to why she quit. She's made statements herself that kind of go back and forth between it was emotions, it was pressure, it was I didn't want to lose medals, which is what I want to talk about specifically. And before we get there, and before we kind of get the perspective on why I still continue to be disappointed, despite the fact that I do recognize that she has made it very clear that she's got mental stuff going on and that she should take care of that, and especially if she's in danger in any way, mentally, physically, whatever, that should be taken care of. I completely agree with that. Am I still disappointed that, and the reason why I believe she has taken herself out of competition? Yeah, I am. And I want to talk a little bit about how it's not mutually exclusive to be disappointed and support her. You can do both. And I think this is why I think a larger conversation needs to be had about this, because it's right now in social media, the way it's portrayed is you either hate Simone Biles and you think she's a loser and a disgrace to her nation, or you love Simone Biles and she can do no wrong. And I think there's room in the middle, especially for people who are taking this back, coaches, parents. I mean, my sister just enrolled the boys into competitive soccer, which they start, I think, in August. They're doing like a summer league right now, like fun, but competitive soccer. And one of the first things that they told her was that she is kind of out of the loop, that they are going to be competing and playing with kids who have been doing this for 3 years. And it's like, they're 6. You know what I'm saying? So so we need to talk about the pressure around athletics, good pressure, bad pressure, negative pressure, and specifically within USA Gymnastics. And I'm sure this is probably a problem across all of the Olympics, USA Olympics, is the idea of medaling and the expectation to medal and the expectation to be perfect. And I think the reason why I was so upset, well, one, I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning to watch these women, pursue their excellence and attain their glory. Not just Simone Biles, but all the women that competed were absolutely phenomenal in their own right. And I woke up at 3 in the morning to watch them do this. And so I kind of saw everything unfold. I also immediately saw the press conference after where Simone Biles sort of talked a little bit about why what happened and why she removed herself. And there was some statements in that press conference that struck me and initially disappointed me, and that's what I'm going to get to. But before we get there, I kind of want to talk a little bit about the background of USA Gymnastics if you're not familiar. And I encourage everybody to watch some documentaries. Um, you know, Golden is actually a really good documentary that follows, I think, 5 or 6 gymnasts that are trying to attain Olympic level to get to the Olympics, Tokyo Olympics. And it kind of talks a little bit about how they sit in this middle of USA Gymnastics where you have the old regime, and I call it regime, the Caroli regime, which is very controversial because of his tactics and how he kind of imported a semi-centrist training regimen and facility for USA Gymnastics that was almost, very similarly modeled on old world, old European, Russian, the Eastern Bloc, Romanian, Soviet, communist approach to gymnastics, which is to have it centralized. A lot of those girls to this day don't live with their parents. They train in facilities away from their parents, and they basically live, in with their coaches and stuff like that. That didn't fully translate to the United States very well because obviously we like our liberty, we like our individualism, and that's just not something that's really meant for our culture. But Bella Caroli and Marta Caroli really took initiative to centralize as much as possible the training regimen for USA Gymnastics in order to unify and kind of create uniformity around the team. And a lot of aspects that worked, right? When Bella Caroli took over, one of the main things was that we became a powerhouse gymnastics nation. We started winning medals. When after the '96 Olympics, in which he specifically coached Carrie Strug, and that whole deal went on, he basically took over USA Gymnastics, and we started winning medals. Russia, since they haven't won a medal since 1992. Why? Because the United States has been a powerhouse since he came on board. Now, there's a lot of discussion, a lot of controversy around his tactics, but which I won't really spend a lot of time on. I encourage you to take time to kind of, delve into the history of gymnastics. It's very fascinating, and really learn about his perspective, his approach to it, which was basically that perfection is everything and the medal count is everything, and not just any medal count, the gold medal count, specifically for the team. That represents America. That's your job, to come here and attain that medal. And, for a lot of people, that's what it's about. For a lot of athletes, that's what it's about. Everybody has a different version of success. And I think right now we're seeing that type of pressure, to attain medals and glory and victory at any cost is something to move away from. And I think USA Gymnastics is moving in that direction. A lot of the outspoken athletes, Ali Raisman, Simone herself, are really trying to. Michaela Skinner was very anti-old old regime. She actually came back in part because she knew Marta was not going to be running this year's Olympics. And so there's a lot of backstory there. Now you'll have gymnasts on the other hand, Kim Zmeskal, Carrie Strug, Nadia Comaneci, Mary Lou Retton, the early, darlings of the Caroli regime who will never bash Caroli. They will constantly defend him and say that he led them to glory and the gold medal was their ultimate goal and they were going to go through hell and back, whatever kind of abuse, whether you call it abuse or not, to get that goal. So win at any cost. Whereas others, most famously Dominique Moceanu in her book Off Balance, really discusses the underbelly of gymnastics, specifically under the Caroli sort of regime. And, right now where we are in transition, and this is aside from the Larry Nassar abuse that persisted under the Caroli regime, which, There's controversy around that too, whether he knew, whether he should have known, whether the Corleys did enough to protect the athletes, um, and all of that. And so, aside from that, there's separate, these gymnasts who've come out to say that Marta and Bella were just old world. They were abusive, and they just implemented tactics that were put them under unspeakable pressure that no athlete should go through. So whatever, that's sort of the nutshell history of USA Gymnastics. Very nutshell history. I would encourage you to see Golden, read Off Balance, if you want to learn a little bit more about the Caroli range and the Caroli regimes and how they ran USA Gymnastics and how to hold a really strong fisted, iron fisted hold on USA Gymnastics. And the reason that I bring this up and the reason that I talk about all of this is because the whole goal of the Caroli regime was medals. Medals, medals, medals. Anything to get the medal. It's all about the medal. Marta is known for perfectionism. She was actually known to chastise, in a lot of ways, if you want to call it that, Simone Biles for her mistake on beam when she won the bronze in 2016. A lot of people forget that she's a 5-time medalist. She has 4 golds, one for the all-around, one for the team, and then 3 apparatuses, and then beam is where she messed up. And Bella Caroli didn't acknowledge that. She basically told her, you need to focus better. This is why you make mistakes. Instead of saying hey, you got all this, you won all of this, and, this is just a, icing on a cake. She pretty much was disgusted that she made such a small mistake because she lost focus on the beam. So they have a standard that is pretty much unattainable, crazy expectations. We all know the Carrie Strug story, where, she basically was injured severely and did that vault. Another thing that, the Carolis are often accused of is the fact that they pretty much use these athletes to attain the USA status gold, and often at the expense of their own individual pursuits. So, for example, Carrie Strug, when she landed on that vault, she had qualified for individual events, and she was unable to do them because she was hurt and injured. It also forced her to retire early. So, we're now in this transition with USA Gymnastics, between Bella Caroli's and Marta. 2016 was her last run at things, and then gave it over to Valery Lukin, who is Nastia Lukin's father, who is a remnant of the old world. He's a Russian gymnast, came here back in, I think, the 90s, trained Nastia Lukin to her gold medal glory in the all-around in the 2008 Beijing Olympics. And I think she won some other medals, I think, on bars and beam maybe. But, trained her and is a remnant of the old world. I mean, a lot of controversy around how he administers his program as well. I mean, he will weigh his girls 3 times a day. He restricts their calorie intake. He controls everything they eat, everything that goes in their body, their training schedules, all that stuff. Again, I'm not an Olympic athlete. I have no idea if this is normal or what it takes to achieve a medal. Some people say it's abusive. Some people say that's what it takes, and you just got to go through hell and back to get that, to get first place. The difference between hell and abuse, I don't know where that line is. But again, the reason that I bring this up is to give you context around the medal, the perfectionism, all of that stuff, right? And fast forward over to Simone Biles and her decision to leave the games, and why I was disappointed. Now, on the floor, when we're watching this live on the floor, even the commentator said, if you can read lips, after she did her first vault, she said, I don't trust myself. You couldn't hear it, but you read the lips, and the commentator was even I think she's saying, I don't trust myself. So she messed up. She messed up. She was supposed to do a specific vault, an Aminar that had 2.5 twists, and instead she barely made 1.5 twists, had a large leap, and she also had some problems in the preliminary qualifications. She had some problems leading up to the Olympics. And when I say problems, I mean she still scored higher than everybody out there. But for her own standards, by her own standards, she was a little bit off. Went back. We all know the story. She went back. With a trainer, with the medical staff, came back out and told her team, I'm sorry, I won't be competing. I want you guys to go out there and kick ass. Which the next sentence, she said, was a little bit tone deaf to me, but whatever, like, I'll let it pass. But she basically said, you guys, this is your first Olympics. I've already been in an Olympics, so I'm good. That's what she said. And so that was a little tone deaf to me because I often watch the Olympics to watch like the underdogs, to watch the people who are like last place. I always look up like in any event that I'm watching, swimming, whatever. I always look at the people who are like in last place just to, because I think they have a really good perspective on just being in the presence of greatness. And so that to me came off a little tone deaf. Initially, I was just like, oh, that sucks. Like, that's not the point. The point is not that, oh, you've already been through, you've been there, done that, so you can just throw this away. Like, so that bothered me a little bit, but whatever. I wasn't going to make a big issue out of it. Then immediately, she's on the sidelines cheering everybody on, whatever. And this whole time I'm thinking she's probably hurt. Then it starts trickling out that she had mental issues, or that, that there was a medical issue. And then people started speculating that it was a mental illness. There's something going on with her mental capacity, not capacity, but like mental strength or whatever. And so then we get to the press conference. And at the press conference, she's saying, some things like my emotions are a little bit varied and, this and that, whatever. But then, and I want to read this quote specifically, she says, I just felt like it would be a little bit better to take a back seat and work on my mindfulness. I didn't want to risk the team a medal for my screw up because they worked so hard for it. And when I heard that, that's when, but the whole context of the Caroli regime, all of this stuff, that's when I got really disappointed because I was hearing from my perspective, this is my perspective only, everybody has made a narrative, a construct of why Simone Biles has left the, Olympics, which back to the whole means she doesn't owe you anything, she doesn't owe any explanation. No, she doesn't, but I'm still going to have my opinion about it, so let's just get past that. So when I heard that, what I'm hearing is I didn't want to risk the team a medal. So medal is still top of mind. For my screw up, so I'm not attaining perfection. I'm going to cost them the medal. If I mess up, I'm going to remove myself from the equation. Now, whether that's commendable, whether that's sacrificing yourself for the greater good, whatever it is, her team started crying. Her team was like, we need you. We want you. Like, what is going on? Left them, whether it's a legitimate reason or not, we can tout all day about how legitimate it was and how heroic even it was for Simone Biles to make this decision. It still had consequences. It still put her team in a position where they had to pivot. They beautifully executed that pivot. Jordan Childs didn't even have time to warm up on bars. She wasn't scheduled to do beam. Like, put them in a really tough spot. You know what I mean? And so that was just kind of like, damn, like, okay. And again, we go back to this when the main point of why I was disappointed was because what I was hearing was this carryover from the Caroli regime, which Simone herself has been saying she's been trying to get away from. That even during the Olympics, she was doing it for everybody else. She wanted validation from Marta, most prominently, Caroli, and, moving away from that, and still focusing on medal count, perfectionism, fear of failure. That's what really got me. That's what I was hearing coming out of that press conference at 4:30 in the morning when I was, drunk on coffee because I'm trying to like figure out what's going on. And by the way, like, I have loved gymnastics since I was that little girl when I was 11 or whatever, 10 or 11 in 1996 when the Magnificent Seven, did their tour after the Olympics around the United States. and I went to go see them because they always do like a fun gymnastics where we can go see them perform and blah blah blah. My mom took me. She would always take me when I would get straight A's. She would take me to like Disney on Ice. She would take me to like Ice Capade. She would take me to like all these things. And that year, when I got straight A's, it was that. And I was beside myself. I loved Dominique Moceanu. I read her biography when I was 11 years old. Like, it was everything to me. And at that time, I revered the Carolis. I was like, oh my God, I want to train with the Carolis. This is my life. I want to do all this stuff. So, needless to say, I didn't have the body for it. I probably could have trained for it if I was really serious about it, but I didn't have the body for it. I was really tall. I've always been kind of chubby. And secondly, the money. I mean, it's expensive. So expensive. I highly encourage you to watch Golden just for that. They touch on how families, communities, all of these people, Sunilisa's dad is famous for saying that, he's like, man, when I started this, like, I thought it was gonna be like $20 for like a leotard. I was gonna go to like Dick's Sporting Good and buy her a leotard. And they run, some of these things for competition levels start at $350 to $500. Like, that's the range for one leotard. That doesn't include gym fees. That doesn't include, choreographers. That doesn't include all this stuff. So when you're at the elite level, there's a lot of people behind you trying to get you to where you need to go, especially in the United States. This is not like government funded. You know what I mean? And so, anyways, I digress. But, I've followed gymnastics since I was a little girl. I love gymnastics. I love watching the Olympics. And for me, as I think it should be for everybody, we don't watch the Olympics because we expect a medal. That's why I'm so funny. All these memes are coming. She doesn't owe you anything. We don't owe you a medal. We don't owe you this or whatever. I'm like, that's something, USA Gymnastics, you may owe them something because that's the program you went through to have the privilege to perform on this stage. So there's an argument for that there. But you don't owe me anything. You don't owe the spectators anything. We're just on our couch watching you because we think you're cool. And because, usually athletes at your level have a really good perspective on things and have a good outlook on things and have a good, attitude about things and persevere through things and don't fear failure. And if you do fear failure, that you work through that. And so out of all of the constructs and narratives that people have been saying that Simone Biles has exited and decided to focus on her mental health or whatever, all I heard at 5:30 in the morning when I was watching this was, I decided to take a back seat to work on my mindfulness. I didn't want to risk the team a medal for my screw up because they worked so hard for that. She continues through that interview to say, I can't risk a medal for the team, so I need to call it. That was her decision. And again, it's just like this focus on perfectionism, this focus on the medal count, focus on all that stuff. I mean, we went through a situation here in Phoenix recently where we rallied, for the Phoenix Suns, who, were on the road to victory, on the road to a championship, an NBA championship. And one of the things that I love about the Phoenix Suns was that Chris Paul, for example, Devin Booker, Ayton, Crowder, this team basically stuck with it, stuck with each other, stuck with a team that needed to rise up from nothing. We didn't have players on our team who went searching for rings. They didn't go to the Knicks or the Nets or whatever, whoever the big team was or whatever, or, shop teams so that they could get a ring. That's not who our players were. And I love that about the Phoenix Suns. And what especially made them stand out to me was that they came up short. They were outplayed in the finals. And that, to me, still, despite that loss, does not diminish their journey to success, to achieve excellence as a team. And when I think about champions, when I think about excellence, that's what I think about, even when you fall short, even when you're imperfect, even when you lose. I mean, this is what our history of sportsmanship is based on. When you think about Kobe Bryant, that's what you think about. His ability to face adversity, his ability to penetrate through fear of failure. Is how many how many baskets Michael Jordan made. He missed almost 75% more. Like, those are the stories that's why I watch the Olympics. And so to see an athlete come out and say, I wasn't going to risk the medal for my screw up, that to me said, I'm afraid of failure. I am not perfect. Therefore, I don't deserve to be on this team. And therefore, I'm taking myself out because the medal is what matters. And after everything that USA Gymnastics has been through, after Simone and all of her expertise as an athlete, as the GOAT, as her maturity in the sport, to have it come down to that's why I was disappointed. Now, does that mean on the other end that we shouldn't support her decision? Now, after that, everybody started constructing all their ideas and why she quit and blah blah blah, and NBC went through her tweets and was like, oh well, yesterday she tweeted that there was just so much pressure on this, and so it's really about the pressure. And then they started interviewing Michael Phelps, and oh yeah, I understand what pressure is, and none of us understand what that pressure is. If you're not an Olympic athlete, if you're not competing at an elite level like that, you're never going to understand what that pressure is. And so if you're buckling under that, I mean, who are we to say you shouldn't come out of that? Remove yourself from that situation, especially if you think you're going to get hurt. This happens in boxing a lot where, we see athletes who go after it and take fights that they shouldn't because they want to progress and they want to, they just want to go for it. And they end up getting hurt. They end up getting hurt and they end up retiring early and not realizing their dreams because they're not mindful of the situation enough to remove themselves from that, or have a manager who's able to say, you're not ready yet. So I do commend her for that. There are things within this situation that I'm like, okay, if that's the case, if it was pressure, if it was this and that, whatever, then I can understand. I got to step back here. This is too much. I'm buckling and I'm recognizing that. And I'm not going to be Carrie Strug on the runway saying, win at any cost, whether it's falling on my face, whether it's what, I'm not going to do that. Simone Biles does very difficult elements. There's nobody in the world who can even attain or achieve the fraction of difficulty that she does in her routines. And so it's also a safety issue. If you think that you're not in the right space to achieve those things that you've designed for yourself, by all means, get yourself out of that situation. I think that's super commendable. I think that's a strength, that's a leadership quality. That's not what I heard at 4:30 in the morning when I was drunk on coffee trying to watch these women and all this drama go down. That initial press comment from her mouth, she said, medals, perfection, I don't want to screw up. And so I'm quitting. That's what I heard. Now, everyone's going to have an opinion about what they heard, why she actually quit, whatever, that she doesn't owe us an explanation for why she doesn't. I'm still going to have an opinion about it, okay? I'm sitting on my couch, I'm watching these people, I'm still going to have an opinion about it, just like you agreeing with her is an opinion about it. You agreeing with the mental health, whatever the case is, you're still having an opinion about it. So I don't like this whole, oh, well, you're never going to be a gymnast, you're never going to be this, you're never going to be that, so therefore shut up. Okay, well, then if that's the case, then all of us need to shut up. We just take yourself out of it. This poor girl's being ripped apart anyways, just so that we can prove our political or ideological agendas. And it's really ridiculous. It's sad, actually. So I just wanted to come out here, and say that these two things, support for her decision ultimately, especially for me in the respect of buckling under the pressure and all that stuff, things that we don't understand at that level. I totally think that's exactly what she should have done, is remove herself from the situation. That's not initially what I heard. The reason I was disappointed was because I heard that she had a fear of failure. And that when you're putting that above being there for your team and giving it your best and laying it out all on the table, and however the results may come is how the results may come, however the cookie crumbles is how the cookie crumbles. If you're having an off day, these athletes can't be performing at top level all the time. I would have been there supporting her. I would have, we all would have. And I felt like she was afraid of that. She was afraid that we were going to fail. And it even became evident after that when they got the silver medal. She said, I hope America still loves us. And it just keeps coming back to her level of confidence. I feel like it was off. I feel like she was afraid to drop the ball. And so she quit. And that's why I was disappointed. And all of the context, all of the Caroli regime, all of everything is about meddling, everything is about this, everything is about perfectionism, everything about that carried over. And she tried so hard this whole time leading up to kind of remove herself away from that. Um, and she couldn't do it. And I think she buckled under that, her own standard, her own level of perfectionism. And I just felt like, man, what a lesson, we could have learned to see Simone, even if she fell flat on her face, even if she just couldn't stick her routines, to say that would have been also a level of humility and humanity. And I think we could have learned from that, and so I just was disappointed to hear of her fear of failure. That's what I heard. And that's why I was disappointed. I love Simone. She's always going to be a gymnastics gem. She's always going to be the sweetheart of America. Um, we can rip her apart for the decision that she made, but she made it, and we have to respect that. I think we just have to respect that. I'm very excited to see a gymnast, the alternate gymnast who's from Phoenix, Arizona, get her shot in the sun. Um, so there are silver linings that are coming out of this whole drama. But, I feel for coaches. I feel for parents. My sister, who just put my nephews in this competitive soccer league, who are now they're going to be the ones to take this story away and draw the line between commitment to your team, commitment to your sport, especially in a situation where it's expensive. You can't just have kids running around saying like, oh, I don't feel like it anymore. You know what I mean? Like, they have to appreciate who's getting you there and who's giving you the ability and the privilege to play the sport. And so there were some things that someone said that was just like, oh, I've already been to an Olympics, so I'm good. And it's like, that's not the right attitude to have about that. This is a big deal for a lot of people. And having you alongside them is a big deal for a lot of people. And, yeah, you got to put yourself first. But if it's for, oh, I'm imperfect and we might not get medal, so I'm going to take myself out, I think that was the wrong reason. And that's what I heard. And that's why I was upset. And that's why I was disappointed. Now, who am I? Nobody. I am zero. I'm just in my 0.1% corner of the internet, like having an opinion among everybody else in the world who has an opinion about this. I love gymnastics. I love, love, love gymnastics. It's been my favorite sport forever. And I hope that we can all have a good discussion about this and learn from this, and that coaches and parents who have their kids in sports, can take away from this and really rethink, their strategies and their approaches to how to obtain excellence from these children and these kids and these young people, while still having the balance of thinking about things like mental health. Are we pressuring them too much? They're the ones that are going to have to find that balance, and that's not an easy balance to strike. So the fact that everybody's like all or nothing, is really appalling to me. It's just like, dude, like, why can't reasonable mind? We can all have reasonable conclusions about this. It doesn't have to be like you hate Simone and she's a disgrace forever, or you completely back her decision and there's no criticism there. There's a middle. There's a healthy middle. So, and I always think about my own experiences with adversity. I mean, I wasn't a great athlete, but I do understand what it is to have to choose. I played volleyball up until my sophomore year, and I remember I didn't have money to like go and play club ball. All the girls around me played club ball year round, and I remember my coach telling me, if you don't get on their level, you're gonna be left behind. And so I tried out for club ball. I made the local Arizona traveling team, and it was like $15,000 just for fees. You know what I mean? And my dad sat me down and was like, if you're not all in, like, I had to make that decision at that point. If you're not all in and you're not 100% about this, we're not going further. We're not paying for this so that you can have fun. That's not what this is about. I mean, you could have fun because you like the sport, but that's not the primary goal here. And it was made clear to me at a very young age. And so, I wasn't the best athlete anyways, and so I wanted to focus on my writing. I became an editor for my newspaper and started writing, and then I wanted to go to law school and like all of this stuff. So it's like, just because we're not athletes doesn't mean that we can't learn from this. I know what it's like to be under pressure. I know what it's like to have people backing you to help you through your success. And you know, pressure's tough. Pressure's tough at any level. And even if you're not an elite gymnast or an elite athlete, when you're undergoing the pressure at your level, it's hard. It's really hard. And that's the thing that we're going to be taking away, is teaching our kids how to strive under pressure, and how to strike a balance between, I'm getting pushed too hard and I need to back off, versus I made a commitment to my team and I'm going to be there for them no matter what, even if I'm having an off day, even if I'm not perfect, even if we don't win in place for second or third. So that's the balance that we're talking about here. And I don't think that it's wrong to be all or nothing on either side. There's a discussion to have. There's a line to be drawn here, and it's not an easy one to draw. And the fact that everyone's making it so black and white, to me, is really just not good. So I just wanted to come give my unsolicited 2 cents about this, and just give my perspective as to why somebody who would say, man, I was disappointed that she quit her team, is still in love with Simone Biles. I still respect her. I still think she is great. I still think she took gymnastics to a level that will be thanking her for ages to come. And to give perspective on that, because I think on social media it's just like, oh, you're ignorant loser because you think Simone Biles is a quitter or whatever. So I just wanted to kind of clarify that. And yeah, that's my take. So have a good one, guys, and I'll see you back on the channel sometime soon. Bye.